Hello guys, Uncle Vasil here with yet another history video. This time we are going to explore the story and deeds of the Saints Cyril and Methodius. I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. The Glagolitic alphabet, created by Cyril and Methodius in the 9th century, was the first writing system ever designed specifically for a Slavic language, and it represented a breakthrough in cultural independence for the Slavic peoples. Instead of adapting Greek or Latin letters, which didn't fit Slavic sounds well, the brothers built an entirely new script from the ground up, crafting symbols that matched the unique phonetics of Old Church Slavonic. This allowed them to translate the Bible and liturgical texts into a language ordinary people actually spoke, making religious life more accessible and strengthening Slavic identity. Their alphabet wasn't just a tool for writing, it was a cultural catalyst that enabled literacy, administration, and the spread of Christianity in a form that felt native rather than imposed. Although Glagolitic was later replaced in most regions by the Cyrillic alphabet developed by their students, its creation marked the moment Slavic culture stepped onto the historical stage with its own written voice. Cyril and Methodius became pioneers of Slavic literacy because they did something revolutionary for their time. They insisted that faith and learning should speak the language of the people. Instead of forcing Slavs to worship in Latin or Greek, languages most could not understand, they translated the Bible, church services, and essential theological texts into Old Church Slavonic, the first literary language of the Slavs. This wasn't just a linguistic project, it was a cultural breakthrough that allowed ordinary villagers, not just clergy or elites, to hear scripture and participate in worship in words that felt familiar and alive. Their translations created a shared written tradition across diverse Slavic tribes, laying the foundation for future literature, education, and administration. In essence, they turned language into a bridge, connecting the Slavs to Christianity, to literacy, and ultimately to a lasting cultural identity. When Cyril and Methodius were sent from the Byzantine Empire to Great Moravia in 863, their mission stood out because it combined religious outreach with cultural diplomacy in a way few missionaries had attempted before. Great Moravia's ruler, Prince Rastislav, had specifically requested teachers who could preach Christianity in a language his people understood, rather than relying on foreign Latin-speaking clergy who held too much influence. The Byzantine emperor and patriarch responded by choosing the two brothers, who were not only devout monks but also skilled linguists and diplomats. Their task was to introduce Christianity in a form that felt native rather than imposed, and this meant teaching, preaching, and conducting liturgy in the local Slavic tongue. By bringing both faith and literacy, they offered Moravians a spiritual tradition that aligned with their identity, strengthening local autonomy while deepening ties with Byzantium. Their mission became a turning point in Slavic history, proving that religion could be a force for cultural empowerment rather than cultural erasure. Cyril and Methodius were far more than missionaries, they were exceptionally trained scholars whose complementary strengths made their work possible. Cyril, born Constantine, studied in Constantinople's finest intellectual circles, mastering philosophy, rhetoric, and multiple languages, which earned him the nickname, the philosopher. His linguistic talent allowed him to analyze Slavic speech patterns and design an alphabet that fit them precisely. Methodius, the older brother, brought a different but equally crucial skill set, years of administrative experience as a provincial governor and later as a monk deeply familiar with church law, organization, and diplomacy. While Cyril provided the intellectual and linguistic brilliance behind their cultural innovations, Methodius ensured their mission functioned smoothly, managing communities, navigating political tensions, and building stable institutions. Together, they formed a rare partnership in which scholarly insight and practical leadership worked hand in hand, enabling them to reshape the spiritual and cultural landscape of the Slavic world. Cyril and Methodius became defenders of the right to worship in the vernacular because they believed that faith should be accessible to everyone, not just to those who understood Latin, which at the time was the exclusive language of Western Christian liturgy. When they introduced Old Church Slavonic into worship, they directly challenged the Latin-only clergy who argued that sacred texts could be used only in Hebrew, Greek, or Latin, the so-called sacred languages. The brothers rejected this idea as both unhistorical and spiritually limiting, insisting that God's message should not be confined to a linguistic elite. Their stance sparked intense opposition from some Western clerics, who feared losing influence in Slavic regions if people could pray and learn in their own tongue. Despite pressure, Cyril and Methodius defended the principle that every culture deserved its own path to literacy and worship, and their persistence eventually won papal approval for Slavic liturgy. Their struggle wasn't just about language, it was about cultural dignity, autonomy, and the belief that spiritual life should be rooted in the words people speak every day. Cyril and Methodius created the first Slavic literary language, Old Church Slavonic, by taking the sounds of the spoken Slavic dialects they encountered and giving them a precise written form for the very first time. This wasn't just a translation exercise, it was the deliberate construction of a full literary system capable of expressing theology, law, poetry, and everyday communication. By shaping a standardized written language that Slavs could immediately recognize as their own, they provided a cultural anchor that helped unify diverse tribes who previously shared only oral traditions. Their work became the seed from which later Slavic literary cultures grew. Bulgarian, Serbian, Russian, and others built their medieval literatures on the linguistic foundations the brothers established. In effect, they didn't just give the Slavs an alphabet, they gave them a written identity that would influence the region for more than a millennium. Cyril and Methodius hold a central place in Bulgarian cultural history because their mission and teachings found their strongest and most enduring legacy on Bulgarian soil, where their disciples were welcomed after being expelled from Great Moravia. In Bulgaria, under the patronage of Tsar Boris I, their students established major literary centers such as the Preslav and Ohrid literary schools, where they continued translating religious texts, training clergy, and refining the written Slavic language. It was in this environment that the Cyrillic alphabet, named in honor of Cyril, was developed by their followers as a more streamlined script based on Greek letters but adapted for Slavic sounds. This new alphabet became the foundation of Bulgarian literacy and later spread to Serbia, Kievan Rus, and beyond, shaping the written traditions of many Slavic nations. In this way, Cyril and Methodius didn't just influence Bulgaria, they helped define its cultural identity and contributed to the creation of one of the world's most widely used writing systems. Cyril and Methodius gained powerful legitimacy for their work when the Pope formally recognized their mission and endorsed the use of the Slavic language in Christian worship, an extraordinary decision for the 9th century. When opposition from Latin-only clergy intensified, the brothers traveled to Rome to defend their approach directly before the papal court. Pope Hadrian II not only accepted their arguments but also blessed their Slavic liturgical books and allowed them to celebrate Mass in Old Church Slavonic, placing their work under the protection of the highest authority in Western Christianity. This approval was more than symbolic, it validated the idea that sacred texts and worship could exist outside the traditional trio of Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, and it shielded their disciples from accusations of heresy. The Pope's support helped secure the long-term survival of Slavic literacy and liturgy, ensuring that their cultural project would continue even after their deaths. Being declared apostles to the Slavs was more than an honorary title, it was a recognition of the enormous cultural and spiritual transformation Cyril and Methodius set in motion across the Slavic world. The title acknowledged that they did for the Slavs what earlier apostles had done for the first Christian communities. They brought not only a new faith, but also the tools to understand, preserve, and express it in their own language. By creating a written system, translating scripture, training clergy, and defending the right to worship in the vernacular, they laid the foundations for Slavic literacy, literature, and religious life. Their influence spread far beyond their lifetimes, shaping the development of Bulgaria, Serbia, and Kievan Rus, and eventually giving rise to the Cyrillic alphabet used by millions today. Calling them apostles to the Slavs was a way of acknowledging that their work didn't just convert people, it helped define an entire civilization. Cyril and Methodius' influence did not end with their own lifetimes, rather, it was their disciples who carried their work across the Slavic world and ensured its lasting impact. After being expelled from Great Moravia, these students found refuge in Bulgaria, where they were welcomed by Tsar Boris I and given the resources to continue teaching, translating, and training new clergy in the Slavic liturgical tradition. From the major cultural centers of Ohrid and Preslav, they produced books, educated generations of priests, and refined the written language that would become central to Slavic identity. Their work soon spread into Serbia, where Slavic liturgy and literacy took root in monastic communities, and into Kievan Rus, where the adoption of Christianity in 988 created a huge demand for Slavic texts and trained clergy. Through this network of scholars, scribes, and teachers, the disciples of Cyril and Methodius helped shape the religious, literary, and cultural foundations of the Orthodox Slavic world, ensuring that the brothers' legacy became a defining force in Eastern European civilization. This is the end of the video, guys. I hope you found this educational. For more history content, please check out my channel. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.